You say you want to live an extraordinary life, but maybe you're doing exactly the opposite. You wake up blaming yourself. You rest while feeling guilty. You pray while worried. You plan with fear. And you try to improve as if you were always below what you should be. And maybe that is why you try, but you remain tired on the inside. You are trying to live the extraordinary with a tired mind, a heavy heart, and a soul trained to survive, not to enjoy life. Proverbs reveals that an extraordinary life does not begin with an external achievement. It begins when the heart is guarded, the mind is trained, the patterns are corrected, and wisdom changes the way you carry life on the inside. So stay until the end, because maybe today you will discover that what is keeping you from living better is not a lack of ability. It is the excess of pressure that has taken the place of wisdom. Allow yourself to live the extraordinary. Maybe you are tired not because you do not want to change, but because you have tried to change so many times that you started doubting yourself. You have already promised to start over. You have already said, "This time it will work." You have already tried to change your habits, your routine, your mindset, your financial life, your behavior, your emotions, your way of thinking, your way of acting, your way of reacting. You have already tried to be more disciplined, more productive, stronger, more consistent, more spiritual, more mature. But at some point, after so many attempts, so many falls, so many interrupted new beginnings, the pain stopped being only the desire to grow. It became the exhaustion of trying to grow and still feeling insufficient. And maybe you do not say this to anyone, but inside there is a sentence that weighs on you. I am tired of trying. You look at your life and think, I try, but I go back to the same patterns. I want a better life, but I am tired. I want peace, but my mind does not stop. I want to grow, but I am destroying myself. And this is exactly where this video begins. Not to accuse you, not to throw more weight on you, but to show you something you may have never clearly realized. The extraordinary should not be a burden crushing your soul. It should be a permission to live with wisdom. Because for many people, an extraordinary life stopped being a possibility and became an obligation. The person no longer dreams with lightness. They pressure themselves with harshness. They do not seek growth with hope. They seek growth as if they were trying to pay a debt to life. They rest with guilt. They work with anxiety. They compare themselves to everyone. They blame themselves for not being where they wanted to be yet. They look at their age and feel behind. They look at others and feel inferior. They look at their own mistakes and feel shame. They look at the future and feel fear. And little by little, they begin to believe that maybe they do not deserve to live better. But there is a truth that needs to enter deep into your heart today. You do not need to prove your worth all the time. You do not need to destroy yourself in order to change. You do not need to live on the edge to deserve something good. You do not need to turn success into a prison, growth into punishment, and the extraordinary into a burden that dries up your joy. The wisdom of Proverbs teaches us a different path, a path where you can grow without losing peace, evolve without guilt, improve without hating yourself, build a solid life without abandoning your heart in the middle of the process. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel, because here we do not speak only about shallow motivation, beautiful phrases, or momentary excitement. Here we seek wisdom to understand life, correct invisible patterns, and build a more solid life on the inside and on the outside. And write in the comments one tip that changed your life to live more simply, and let's continue from where we left off. Proverbs 4:23 says, "Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it." And look at the depth of this. If the heart is full of guilt, comparison, anxiety, excessive pressure, self-blame, haste, insufficiency, and fear, your entire life begins to be filtered through that weight. A person may even be trying to build something great, But if the heart is downcast, the soul is overwhelmed, and the mind has no peace, everything becomes a battle, everything becomes a threat, everything becomes proof that they are not enough. That is why the extraordinary begins when the heart is guarded, healed, and aligned by wisdom. And today, step by step, you will understand why allowing yourself to live the extraordinary is not about running more, pressuring yourself more, or proving more. It is about learning to carry life with peace, direction, maturity, trust, and a heart finely trained not to destroy itself along the way. The extraordinary became a burden, not a permission. There are people who hear the word extraordinary, and instead of feeling hope, they feel weight. It sounds strange, but that is exactly what happens inside many people. The person says they want an extraordinary life, says they want to grow, improve, evolve, mature, live with wisdom, have inner peace, build a solid life. But when they look at themselves, the first feeling is not excitement, it is guilt. They think, I am tired of trying, I cannot change, my life is not moving forward, I am behind, I am not enough. And without realizing it, what should have been a permission to live better becomes excessive pressure. The dream of growing turns into a kind of invisible whip. The person wakes up already blaming themselves, works while comparing themselves, rests with guilt, prays with anxiety, plans with fear, and ends the day feeling that they did a lot, but still not enough. It is as if the mind, trained to survive, had forgotten how to breathe in peace. And look how curious this is. Many times this person is not lazy, not irresponsible, not complacent. On the contrary, they try, insist, go after things, make plans, seek direction, watch content, read quotes, write down goals, start again on Monday, try to change their routine, try to organize the house, try to take care of their body, try to improve their spiritual life, try to be more productive, stronger, more disciplined. But inside there is a tired soul, an overwhelmed soul, carrying an inner weight no one sees. On the outside, they seem to be moving. On the inside, they are in emotional survival. And when someone lives like this for a long time, even the word growth starts to feel frightening, because growing stops looking like a path and starts looking like punishment. The person does not think, I can grow with peace. They think, I need to improve quickly because the way I am is not enough. And there lies a silent danger, the kind that enters through the back door of the soul and messes everything up without making a sound. The wisdom of Proverbs enters exactly at this point, because Proverbs does not deal only with money, work, discipline, or decisions. Proverbs deals with the heart. And when Proverbs 17:22 says that a cheerful heart is good medicine, but a crushed spirit dries up the bones, it is showing something many people ignore. A person may be trying to build an extraordinary life with a dried-up spirit. They may be producing, studying, working, serving, fighting, seeking purpose, trying to become a better person. But if inside the heart is downcast, if the mind has no peace, if the soul lives crushed by self-pressure, eventually the body demands the bill, joy disappears, gratitude becomes distant, and even the little things that once brought pleasure lose their brightness. It is like trying to water a garden with an empty bucket. The person wants flowers, wants fruit, wants beauty, wants growth, wants a life with wisdom, but forgets that nothing blooms where the source has dried up. They want new results, but they are living with a soul without water. And here, there needs to be a loving confrontation, the kind that hurts a little but heals. Maybe this person confused improving with hating themselves. Maybe they learned that they only deserve inner rest when everything is solved, only deserve joy when they achieve success, only deserve peace when they become perfect, only deserve to live something good when they prove they are strong, productive, disciplined, and mature enough. But this is not biblical wisdom. This is a mindset of pressure disguised as personal development. It is the old wrong mindset saying, you still do not deserve to breathe. You still do not deserve to smile. You still have not done enough. You still have not arrived. And let's be honest, if the soul had an email inbox, that message would go straight to spam because it does not come from wisdom. It comes from accusation. The extraordinary begins to change places when a person understands that they do not need to destroy themselves in order to become someone better. They do not need to turn growth into punishment. They do not need to use success as a prison. They do not need to live trying to prove their worth to God, to others, to family, to the internet, to the past, or to that internal voice that is never satisfied. Allow yourself to live with wisdom. Allow yourself to live with peace. Allow yourself to live with gratitude before everything is perfect. This does not mean abandoning diligence, throwing responsibilities into the air and saying, "Now I am light, no one can hold me back," because then that would already be confusion wearing the perfume of freedom. It means exchanging guilt for wisdom, pressure for direction, anxiety for clarity, haste for consistency, comparison for identity. It means looking at your own life and saying, "I can grow without hating myself. I can evolve without guilt. I can improve without crushing myself. I can build a solid life without losing my heart in the process." A practical attitude to begin with is simple but powerful. Before making the list of what needs to change, the person should make the list of what they are already carrying. Because some people want more goals when in reality they first need to take care of a guarded heart. Before saying, "I need to produce more," maybe they need to ask, "What is draining my strength? What invisible patterns are stealing my peace? What kind of thought has been drying up my bones on the inside?" And the answer may come in small things: resting with guilt, daily comparison, fear of the future, cruel self-pressure, lack of gratitude, excess content, little prayer, absence of silence, the attempt to control everything. And when that perception begins, something changes. The person stops treating their own soul like a broken machine and starts treating it like a garden that needs water, light, care, and pruning. But there is a very common trap. Even when they begin to take care of themselves, they may still keep looking at other people's lives as if that were proof that they have fallen behind. Haste is making you confuse growth with desperation. Haste has deceived many people while wearing the face of responsibility. The person wakes up already feeling they are losing time, looks at their age, looks at the bills, looks at the dreams that have not happened yet, looks at others moving forward and thinks, "I am behind." And when this feeling of being behind enters the heart, it does not come alone. It brings anxiety about the future, excessive pressure, guilt, comparison, fear of not making it, and that inner voice saying, "Run, because if you do not fix your life now, there will never be time again." But that voice, as convincing as it may seem, is not wisdom. It is desperation wearing a productivity suit. The person begins to confuse diligence with anxiety. They think that if they are not running all the time, they are being weak. If they rest, they feel guilty. If they slow down, they think they are falling behind. If they take a pause to breathe, that feeling comes that they should be producing something. And my God, what emotional exhaustion it is to live like that. It is as if life had become a treadmill going too fast. The person runs, but does not feel like they are getting anywhere. They try to grow, but destroy themselves. They try to improve, but hate themselves in the process. They try to build an extraordinary life, but live with their mind at war, their heart tight and their soul tired. And the worst part is that on the outside, many people even praise them. "Wow, you are so hard-working." But inside, the person knows it is not just effort, it is fear. Fear of falling behind, fear of disappointing others, fear of never moving forward, fear of not being enough. Fear that life will pass and they will remain in the same place, holding the same dreams, making the same promises, returning to the same invisible patterns that drain their strength. Proverbs 21:5 says, "The plans of the diligent lead to profit as surely as haste leads to poverty." And look how surgical the wisdom of Proverbs is. The text does not condemn planning. It does not condemn effort. It does not condemn healthy ambition. It does not condemn the desire to improve, study, work, start a business, take care of the house, take care of the body, organize life, seek direction, and build something greater. On the contrary, Proverbs honors diligence. The diligent person is someone who does what needs to be done, even when no one is applauding. It is someone who builds with consistency, who plants today even without harvesting tomorrow, who remains on the path even when the result has not yet appeared. But excessive haste is something else. Excessive haste does not build. It runs over things. It does not mature. It skips steps. It does not bring clarity. It creates confusion. Diligence builds. Haste destroys. Diligence creates roots. Haste wants fruit without process. Diligence works with wisdom. Haste works with panic. And many people are calling focus what is actually anxiety. They are calling discipline what is actually fear. They are calling I am demanding with myself what deep down is cruel self-pressure, a survival mindset, a burden that does not allow the heart to be at peace. It is like pulling a seed out of the ground every day to see if it has already become a tree. The person wants to see results so badly that they interrupt their own process. They plant on Monday, dig on Tuesday, complain on Wednesday, compare on Thursday, quit on Friday, and on Sunday say, I cannot change. But the seed did not fail. It just did not have time to create roots. And there are changes in life that do not appear first on the stage. They appear underground. That is why growing with wisdom requires learning to exchange haste for diligence. It is not stopping. It is not giving up. It is not sitting on the couch, crossing your arms and saying, when God wants it, it will happen. While the sink is full, the resume is stuck, the Bible is closed, the plan is forgotten, and the phone is already on the 5th random video. That is not trust. That is escape with a spiritual caption. Exchanging haste for diligence is doing the right part at the right pace with a guarded heart. It is creating consistency without turning life into punishment. It is studying a little every day instead of trying to compensate for years of delay in one desperate night. It is walking 20 minutes, organizing one drawer, saving a little, reading a chapter of Proverbs, asking for counsel, writing possible goals, sleeping better, taking care of the mind, correcting patterns, training self-control, and making small choices that, when repeated, begin to build a solid life. A person needs to understand that the extraordinary is not born only from major turning points. Many times, it is born from faithfulness in small decisions that no one sees. An extraordinary life can begin when they decide not to answer impulsively, when they choose not to compare themselves, when they guard their heart, when they replace a complaint with gratitude, when they sit for 10 minutes and ask, what is the next wise step? You do not need to solve your entire life today. You need to stop turning the future into a threat. You need to allow yourself to live with peace while you build. Allow yourself to grow without destroying yourself. Allow yourself to evolve without guilt. Allow yourself to improve without hating yourself. You can be consistent without living in desperation. You can grow without losing peace. You can build a life with wisdom without treating every day like a race against the end of the world. But there is something important here. When haste begins to slow down, the person realizes that many times they were running so much because deep down they were trying to control everything. And controlling everything feels like safety until it becomes a prison. You're trying to control everything because you lost trust. There are people who do not realize it, but they live as if they were responsible for holding the entire world with their own hands. The person wakes up thinking about what could go wrong, spends the day trying to predict every detail, tries to control other people's reactions, the result of work, the future of their children, the behavior of the family, the money that has not even arrived yet, the answer that has not come yet, the door that has not opened yet, the conversation that has not even happened yet. And all of this looks like care, looks like responsibility, looks like maturity. But many times it is fear disguised as control. The person says, "I just like to be organized," but inside they are screaming, "If I do not control everything, my life will fall apart." They say, "I just think a lot." But in reality, the mind does not stop because anxiety about the future has become a kind of internal manager, one that does not take vacation even on Sunday. And then, without realizing it, they begin to live on the edge. The body is present, but the heart is always in tomorrow. The mouth speaks, but the mind is calculating risks. The person sits at the table, but does not taste the food. They go to church, but cannot rest in God's presence. They lie down to sleep, but the mind opens a meeting at 2 in the morning with an agenda, minutes, pressure, and imaginary coffee. It even sounds funny, but it is sad, because this person wants peace, but their mind does not stop. They want to live the extraordinary, but they are trying to carry everything alone. And when someone tries to carry everything alone, eventually the soul becomes overwhelmed, the spirit downcast, and the heart loses that simple lightness that made life feel possible. Proverbs 3:5-6 says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your path straight." This text is not telling the person to abandon responsibility, stop planning, or live carelessly. Biblical wisdom has never been an invitation to irresponsibility. Proverbs speaks of diligence, prudence, counsel, instruction, correction, self-control, and the wise path. But here there is a deep key. A person can do their part without turning their own understanding into the only support of their life, because human understanding is limited. It sees pieces, it interprets based on fear, trauma, haste, old experiences, rejections, failures, and expectations. So when someone leans only on what they can understand, they end up trying to control everything they cannot predict. And that is where trust is lost. The person begins to think that trusting means standing still, when in reality, trusting means walking without needing to dominate every detail. It is like driving at night on an unknown road. The car's headlights do not illuminate every mile to the destination. They illuminate the next stretch, and even so, the person keeps moving forward. No one pulls the car onto the shoulder and says, "I will only continue when I can see the entire road all the way to the end." If they did that, they would not get anywhere. The wisdom of Proverbs works in a similar way. It often does not show everything at once. It guides step by step. It gives direction for the next decision, clarity for the next movement, peace for the next stretch. But the anxious mind wants the complete map, the complete guarantee, the complete control, the complete explanation. But an extraordinary life is not born when a person controls everything. It is born when they learn to walk with wisdom, even without understanding everything. The necessary adjustment here is to exchange control for trust, exchange anxiety for clarity, exchange desperation for direction, exchange the survival mindset for a wise mindset. And this begins with practical, simple, but deeply transforming actions. For example, before trying to solve everything impulsively, a person can write 2 columns on a sheet of paper. In one column they write, "What depends on me?" In the other, "What do I need to surrender to God?" It sounds basic, but many people are spending energy trying to control what does not depend on them and neglecting exactly what does. It depends on them to organize their routine, seek counsel, take care of their health, train their mind, guard their heart, control their words, study, work with diligence, ask for forgiveness when they make mistakes, establish boundaries, and act with prudence. But it does not depend on them to control God's timing, everyone's opinion, the past, other people's reactions, every door, every result, and every possible scenario. When a person mixes these two columns, life becomes chaos. They try to act where they should trust, and try to trust where they should act. Then they become tired, frustrated, and confused. Allow yourself to live with wisdom. Allow yourself not to know everything. Allow yourself to walk without turning uncertainty into a sentence. This is not weakness, it is maturity. A mature person is not someone who controls everything, but someone who knows how to discern what needs to be done, what needs to be waited for, and what needs to be surrendered. And when this discernment begins to be born, the heart at peace breathes again. The mind at peace begins to realize that not every delay is a loss, not every waiting period is punishment, not every closed door is abandonment, not every silence is absence. Sometimes what looks like a pause is protection. Sometimes what looks like delay is direction. Sometimes God is not taking the extraordinary life away from a person. He is preventing them from building something great with an internal structure that is too fragile. And that is where another truth appears. Maybe the problem is not lack of potential, but invisible patterns that drain strength before the construction even begins. You are not without potential. You are carrying patterns that drain your strength. There is a very heavy lie that many people believe in silence. I cannot change. The person looks at their own life, sees the same cycles repeating, the same broken promises, the same interrupted new beginnings, the same fears coming back, the same attitudes sabotaging everything, and begins to conclude that the problem is them. They think, I try, but I return to the same patterns. I am not enough. I'm afraid I will not make it. I wanted to live better, but I am tired. And when this thought repeats itself for a long time, it starts becoming identity. The person no longer says only, I failed. They begin to say, I am a failure. They no longer say only, I made a mistake. They begin to say, I am no good. They no longer say, I am in process. They begin to say, my life is not moving forward. But the wisdom of Proverbs teaches us to look deeper. Many times the problem is not lack of potential. It is not absence of value. It is not incapacity. It is not that God forgot that person in the corner of the line while handing out purpose to everyone else. The problem is that they are carrying invisible patterns that drain their strength before they can even build. It is like trying to fill a water tank full of holes. The water goes in, but it leaks out. The person gets motivated, but soon loses heart, learns something new but does not apply it, makes plans but procrastinates, decides to change but compares themselves, starts well but quits when difficulty comes, receives a good word but goes back to speaking badly about themselves, and then they ask why they are so tired. Well, it is not only tiredness from trying, it is tiredness from trying with internal leaks. Proverbs 25:28 says, like a city whose walls are broken through is a person who lacks self-control. This image is strong because a city without walls in the ancient context was an exposed city. Any enemy could enter. Any invasion could happen. Any threat found an open path. And that is exactly how a person without self-control, without emotional boundaries, without a guarded heart, without a trained mind, lives. They become vulnerable to everything. Other people's opinions, comparison, fear, impulse, laziness, anxiety about the future, excessive pressure, guilt, haste, emotional neediness, the need for approval and external pressure. They do not live by direction. They live by reaction. If someone criticizes them, they fall apart. If someone praises them, they get excited. If they see someone winning, they feel behind. If they wake up without motivation, they abandon the commitment. If they feel fear, they procrastinate. If they feel sad, they isolate themselves. If they feel anxious, they try to control everything. If they make a mistake, they give up completely. And so life begins to be led by the emotions of the moment, not by wisdom. The extraordinary requires a life with internal walls, not walls to isolate the person, leaving them cold, closed, and suspicious of everyone. That is not it. These are walls to protect what is precious. It is like a house without a door. The house may be beautiful, may have value, may have good furniture, may have history, may have beauty, but if it has no door, any wind enters, any dust enters, anyone enters, any mess enters. Then the owner looks around and says, "Why is my house always disorganized?" Simple, because it is unprotected. And there are many people living like this on the inside. It is not lack of potential, it is lack of inner protection. That is why, if a person wants to allow themselves to live an extraordinary life, they need to begin correcting their patterns, not only blaming themselves for them. Guilt without correction becomes prison. Correction with wisdom becomes a path. And here the practice needs to be honest. The person can take a sheet of paper and write, "Which patterns drain my strength?" Maybe it is speaking badly about themselves every day. Maybe it is starting projects through emotion and abandoning them at the first difficulty. Maybe it is consuming a lot of content and applying almost nothing. Maybe it is living while trying to please everyone and, in the end, losing their own peace. Maybe it is procrastinating because of fear of not doing it perfectly. Maybe it is resting with guilt and working with anxiety. Maybe it is turning growth into punishment. Maybe it is going on social media to get inspired and leaving there feeling useless. Maybe it is praying for direction, but continuing to ignore counsel, prudence, instruction, and correction. And let's be honest, everyone has some hidden pattern pulling at their feet. The difference is that the wise person stops, observes, and says, "This will no longer govern my life." Train your mind, guard your heart, develop self-control, start small, but truly start. If the pattern is speaking badly about yourself, exchange the phrase, "I cannot change, for I am learning to build with wisdom." If the pattern is procrastination, take the smallest possible action for 10 minutes. If the pattern is comparison, cut off for a while what wounds your peace. If the pattern is pleasing everyone, practice saying a respectful no without writing a whole defense thesis with introduction, development, conclusion, and bibliography. An extraordinary life is not born when the person finally becomes someone without struggles. It is born when they begin to protect their mind, their heart, their process, and their direction. But after protecting the heart, an even deeper discovery appears. The extraordinary does not begin only when life changes on the outside. It begins when the person learns to carry life differently on the inside. The extraordinary begins when you learn to carry life with wisdom. Many people are waiting for life to change on the outside so they can finally feel well on the inside. The person thinks, "When I have more money, I will have peace. When I'm recognized, I will feel happy. When I lose weight, I will love myself. When I win, I will rest. When everything works out, I will be grateful." And so they keep placing inner peace always after some achievement, as if the heart only had permission to breathe when the schedule, the bank account, the body, the family, the career, and the future were perfectly organized. But let's tell the truth with kindness, without sugarcoating it. If a person only allows themselves to have peace when everything is solved, they may spend their whole life without peace, because there will always be something to solve. There will always be a bill, a concern, a decision, a waiting period, a difficult conversation, an area under construction, a part of life asking for maturity. And then life becomes an eternal when. When this happens, I will live. When that improves, I will rest. When I get there, I will smile. When I prove my worth, I will allow myself. But that when can become a beautiful prison, fully decorated with goals, plans, and promises, but still a prison. The person wants an extraordinary life, but cannot experience joy in simple things. They want to grow, but hate the process. They want to build, but curse the now. They want purpose, but despise the path. And the result is a tired soul living on the edge, always chasing a future version of itself while ignoring the present that God is still sustaining. Proverbs 15:15 says, "All the days of the oppressed are wretched, but the cheerful heart has a continual feast." And Proverbs 15:16 completes, "Better a little with the fear of the Lord than great wealth with turmoil." Notice the depth of this. Proverbs is not romanticizing lack, difficulty, or suffering. Biblical wisdom does not ask the person to pretend everything is okay when it is not. It is not about smiling on the outside while the heart is shattered on the inside. It is also not about accepting a small life because of fear of growing. The point is different. The state of the heart changes the way a person experiences life. An afflicted heart turns even good days into heavy days. A mind at war turns even opportunities into threats. An overwhelmed soul turns even rest into guilt. But a heart guided by wisdom can perceive value even in the simple things. It can be grateful for the bread before having the table of dreams. It can breathe in the process before reaching the result. It can see direction even before understanding all the details. It is like two people sitting at the same table. One only sees what is missing: lack of money, lack of recognition, lack of beauty, lack of status, lack of answers, lack of applause, lack of time. The other looks at the same table and notices the bread, the presence, the chance to start over, the good word, the learning, the protection, life. The table is the same, but the heart is different. And when the heart changes, the experience of life changes. The extraordinary is not only having more, it is living better with what you have while building what is still to come. That is why a person needs to learn to carry life with wisdom. Because look, living with wisdom does not mean living without problems. It means not allowing problems to govern the heart. It means not allowing anxiety about the future to steal gratitude from the present. It means not turning every difficulty into proof of abandonment. It means not using every delay as an argument to say, "I cannot change." An extraordinary life begins when the person stops waiting for a perfect life to begin living with gratitude. And this can be practiced in very concrete things. When waking up, before picking up the phone and opening the door to comparison, the person can ask a simple question: what do I already have today that deserves gratitude? They can give thanks for 3 specific things, not generic phrases thrown into the air. Something like, "Thank you for the health I still have, for the chance to start over, for the work that sustains me, for the family that is still with me, for the word that corrects me, for the peace I can train, for the heart that can still be guarded." During the day, when the inner weight comes, they can stop for a few seconds and ask, "Am I carrying this with wisdom or with desperation?" That question seems small, but it opens clarity. Because there are people carrying responsibility as a sentence, process as punishment, growth as a burden, and dreams as pressure. And it does not need to be that way. Allow yourself to live with peace. Allow yourself to live with gratitude. Allow yourself to live with wisdom. Allow yourself to grow without destroying yourself. Allow yourself to improve without hating yourself. The extraordinary is not a life without problems. It is a life where wisdom prevents problems from destroying who the person is on the inside. But there is an even more delicate layer in this path. Even after understanding all this, many people still do not allow themselves to live better, because deep down, they believe they do not deserve it. You need to allow yourself to live better, not only pressure yourself to be better. There is a very delicate point in a person's life when they already know they need to change, already understand they need to grow, already realize that some patterns are draining their strength, but still cannot allow themselves to live better. Not because they lack desire, not because they lack will, not because they do not dream of an extraordinary life, but because deep down there's a feeling of unworthiness saying you do not deserve it. And that voice often comes from old places, failures that left marks, repeated mistakes, negative words someone said that stayed stuck inside like a label on an old jar, rejections, comparisons, promises the person made to themselves and did not keep, attempts that started well and ended in the same pattern. So after so many falls, they begin to think, I want a better life, but I do not believe I deserve it. I no longer know how to start over. I am afraid I will not make it. I try, but I go back to the same patterns. And when this mindset takes root, the person does not only pressure themselves to improve, they punish themselves for not having improved yet. They do not look at the process with hope, they look at it with shame. They do not see correction as a path, they see it as condemnation. And then growth stops being life and becomes a courtroom. The person wakes up trying to prove their worth, works trying to prove their worth, serves trying to prove their worth, helps trying to prove their worth, posts trying to prove their worth, smiles trying to prove their worth. And even when they pray, it seems like they are trying to convince God that they are still worth something. But here comes a truth that needs to pierce the heart with strength. You do not need to prove your worth in order to allow yourself to live with wisdom. Worth is not born when everything works out. Worth does not appear when you finally become an impeccable person. Worth does not begin when you never make mistakes again. You do not need to keep paying for the rest of your life for a version of yourself that wisdom is already trying to transform. Proverbs 24:16 says, For though the righteous fall 7 times, they rise again, but the wicked stumble when calamity strikes. This passage is powerful because it breaks a false idea many people carry, that the righteous person is the one who never falls. Proverbs does not say that. The text says, the righteous falls and rises again. In other words, falling is not automatically the end of the story. Failing is not automatically the loss of identity. Making a mistake does not mean the extraordinary life is over for that person. The difference is not in never falling, it is in not turning the fall into a home. And this image is important. Imagine someone walking down a road, stumbling, falling, getting hurt, getting their clothes dirty, feeling pain. That is bad, of course, no one likes to fall. But falling on the road does not mean the person needs to build a house in the place of the fall, put in a couch, curtains, a rug, a little sign on the door, and say, now I live here. But emotionally, this is exactly what many people do. They fell in one season but spent years living there. They made a mistake in one decision but turned that into identity. They were rejected once but began to live as if they could never again be loved, respected, or lifted up. They failed in one project but decided they were not born to build anything. They sinned, failed, got lost, but instead of receiving correction, instruction, and wisdom, they began to carry guilt as if guilt were a sign of holiness. But guilt without true repentance does not heal. Guilt without wisdom only crushes. The wisdom of Proverbs does not call a person to deny the fall, but to rise with discernment. It teaches, look at where you fell, understand the pattern, receive correction, adjust the path, train your mind, guard your heart, rise, continue. This is maturity. This is life with wisdom. This is growing without destroying yourself. That is why the final adjustment is perhaps the deepest one. A person needs to allow themselves to live better, not only pressure themselves to be better. Allow yourself to stop carrying the past as a sentence. Allow yourself to learn from mistakes without becoming their slave. Allow yourself to receive the good word that rekindles hope. Allow yourself to feel joy again. Allow yourself to breathe on the inside. Allow yourself to live with peace. Allow yourself to live with gratitude. Allow yourself to live an extraordinary life with wisdom, not with desperation. And this begins with practical decisions. If the person fell, they need to ask, what is this fall trying to teach me? If they made a mistake, they need to ask, what pattern do I need to correct? If they are tired, they need to ask, am I pressuring myself or am I being guided? If they lost joy, they need to ask, what has made my spirit downcast and dried up my bones? If they live feeling insufficient, they need to declare a truth until the mind begins to be trained by it. I can grow without losing peace. I can improve without hating myself. I can evolve without guilt. I can build a solid life with God, with wisdom, with consistency, and with a guarded heart. Because the extraordinary is not reserved for those who have never failed. It is built by those who accept being corrected, matured, and lifted by wisdom. And maybe the great key to everything is this: a person does not need to wait until they feel perfect to begin living better. They only need to stop treating their own life as an impossible debt to pay. They need to stop using success as a prison. They need to stop living while trying to prove their worth. They need to understand that the wise path does not begin when guilt ends. Many times it begins when the person decides not to obey guilt as if it were God. And when this permission is born inside, something changes. Life stops being only an attempt to emotionally survive and begins to open like an invitation. Allow yourself to live the extraordinary, but in the right way, with peace, with wisdom, with direction, with a heart at peace, and with a soul that finally learns how to breathe. Only you can allow yourself to live the extraordinary. Maybe until today, you thought that living the extraordinary meant living without problems, without failures, without difficult days, without long processes, and without any part of life under construction. Maybe you imagined that an extraordinary life would be one where everything works, everything fits, everything responds quickly, everything happens at the desired time, everything looks beautiful on the outside, and nothing weighs on the inside. But Proverbs reveals something deeper, more mature, and more liberating. The extraordinary is not a perfect life. It is a life guided by wisdom. It is a heart protected from comparison. It is a mind trained not to live at war. It is a soul that learns to trust even when it still does not understand all the details. It is a person who grows without destroying themselves, matures without losing joy, builds without despising the present, and falls, but does not turn the fall into identity. Because the problem was never simply wanting a better life. The problem begins when a person tries to reach that better life while carrying guilt, haste, fear, anxiety, excessive pressure, and a survival mindset that makes everything feel too heavy. And when the heart is full of this inner weight, even the right path feels tiring, even change feels threatening, even growth feels like punishment. But today, wisdom is calling you to another place. You do not need to wait for everything around you to change in order to start living differently on the inside. You do not need to wait until you have more money to start having gratitude. You do not need to wait for every door to open to guard your heart. You do not need to wait for recognition to arrive in order to stop comparing yourself. You do not need to wait until you are perfect to start over. You do not need to wait until you never fail again to believe that there is still purpose, direction, maturity, and a solid life being built in you. Because the extraordinary does not begin when everything is solved. The extraordinary begins when wisdom enters where guilt used to be. It begins when peace enters where inner war used to be. It begins when clarity enters where anxiety used to be. It begins when trust enters where control used to be. It begins when diligence enters where haste used to be. It begins when identity enters where comparison used to be. It begins when you stop living while trying to prove your worth and understand that a life with wisdom is not born from hatred toward yourself, but from a heart willing to be corrected, healed, aligned, and strengthened. So if today you realize you are destroying yourself while trying to improve, stop for a moment, breathe, guard your heart. Train your mind. Correct your patterns. Exchange pressure for direction. Exchange guilt for wisdom. Exchange anxiety for clarity. Exchange survival for trust. You can grow without losing peace. You can evolve without guilt. You can build an extraordinary life without abandoning your soul along the way. So allow yourself to live the extraordinary. Not like someone who needs to prove their worth to the world. Not like someone who needs to run desperately to make up for the past. Not like someone who pressures themselves all the time to deserve a place in life. Allow yourself to live the extraordinary as someone who decided to carry life with wisdom, peace, gratitude, and trust. As someone who understood that a cheerful heart is medicine, that a heart at peace gives life to the body, that diligence builds, that trust makes paths straight, that self-control protects the soul, that gratitude changes the experience of the present, and that the righteous may fall but can also rise again. Now the question is, will you continue treating your life like an impossible debt to pay? Will you continue resting with guilt, working with anxiety, comparing yourself to everyone, and pressuring yourself because you are not where you wanted to be yet? Or will you decide, starting today, to live with more wisdom on the inside, even while life is still being built on the outside? Because maybe you do not need more pressure. Maybe you need more direction. Maybe you do not need to accuse yourself one more time. Maybe you need to allow yourself to rise with maturity. Maybe you do not need to prove anything to the world today. Maybe you only need to guard your heart and take the next wise step. If this message spoke to you, write in the comments, "I allow myself to live the extraordinary." And if you know someone who is tired of trying to be strong all the time, share this video with that person. Maybe they need to remember that there is still a lighter, wiser, and more extraordinary life to live. Leave your like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications to continue receiving messages that do not feed only shallow motivation, but wisdom to correct invisible patterns, guard the heart, and build a more solid life on the inside and on the outside.